Welcome to the show. As part of a national promotional tour, former international batsman Martin Crowe and publisher Joseph Romanos hosted a breakfast launch in Dunedin last week of Crowe's book Raw, that tells of a traumatic life during and after his stellar career, with a focus on his current battle with cancer. Well, Marty, let's start the book writing process from the beginning. What was the prompt for it?
Well, I needed to, from a counselling point of view, just go through the process of writing out all my feelings and thoughts and getting the stuff out that I'd suppressed and held in for a long time. And I had written some stuff before around cricket, and then just overall, just getting all these thoughts together, sort of thought that I was forming a book, and spoke to Joseph Romanos, the publisher, and he was keen to take on the project. And so then all of a sudden chemotherapy was needed due to my health getting worse, and so it was an interesting exercise, but it was good to take my mind off the chemo, and I continued to write, and here we have a book.
It's been obviously a very cathartic process. Have the speeches had the same effect?
Yes, they have. Actually, getting out and meeting people is great, because I've been in lockdown in my own home for 8 months. I've hardly really been around much groups of people at all. So this has been nice to get around folk and share the message and hear their stories as well. And it's an ongoing thing. Battling cancer and health and getting that well-being right. So that's what we're sharing.
The mental anguish that you suffered throughout your career will be perhaps the shock factor in the book, I have to say, because you look so composed, so controlled in the most hostile environment, and getting that balance of life must have been terribly difficult.
Yeah, it's a classic sort of duck on water, but underneath it's all going a bit pear-shaped at times. I had a good period there in the middle when I sort of matured from the age of 23 on, but up until that point it kind of shaped me into a player that perhaps I wasn't naturally suited to being. I became very technical, very analytical, whereas at sort of my youth I was a lot more carefree and fearless. But I became very fearful through my career of having to perform, and the need to remove this negative feeling I had. But I learned a lot of lessons out of cricket, and I had many amazing memories. I played in a great era, the 1980s. I was lucky, and but I came out of it pretty battered and bruised, and suffered depression, and through cancer now I've finally realised why and what I can do to change it all.
Just want to touch on that 1980s. I believe we were competitive because on our day we had the best keeper in the world, the best bowler, the best bat in yourself, and that was enough of a nucleus around some other very good players competing against perhaps one of the strongest eras in world cricket.
Yeah, it was a strong era. There was the West Indies, of course. Australia sort of have always been strong, although we did capitalise on their weakness in the mid-80s. Pakistan were good with Imran Khan, and then Waqar and Wasim, and England were always pretty strong. South Africa weren't around then, but it was a great era, and you're right. We were propped up by a great bowler, and we had a lot of very, very sturdy characters, the likes of John Wright, Lance Cairns, Ewan Chatfield, Bruce Edgar. They were very, very, very much the backbone of the team, and then a few show ponies like myself to cap it off, and it was a wonderful team to play in, and we managed to be undefeated over 12 years at home.
And I think too, on the field, mentally tough as individuals and as a unit, even though you didn't always get on.
No, we didn't always get on. No, that's the nature of the beast in cricket, really. We come from all sorts of different walks of life, and some had jobs and some didn't, and some relied on cricket and some didn't. But it was kind of a coming together of amateur and professional as well, with some of the county pros like Turner and Howarth and Wright and Hadley meeting up with those who had real jobs. But it was a good combination from that. There was good chemistry, and once we got the confidence, I think we were able to continue that. So I was lucky to be in an era where I had some pretty sturdy and solid and reliable mates.
A salutary lesson I've learned from the book and from listening to you about not rushing youth and talent. It's something we do in New Zealand, isn't it? Because we have so few people to choose from. When we see a smidge of brilliance, they're in.
Yeah, we do, and it can backfire badly. I've seen it enough in cricket. I'm sure there's been some examples of it in rugby and other sports. I don't think it's worth it. I think it's worth waiting and being patient, and because you'll get extra on the back end. But if you burn them off early, they don't really recover and they don't give you that longevity you really want. Sometimes it's ego, sometimes it's some person wanting to be the one who discovered that that young talent. And that's where the responsibility is very important. It's not just about talent, it's about the human being himself, or in her case, whatever, in women's sport as well. That is very important to consider.
Because we look at other countries, Tendulkar 16 at Test cricket, it can work, but it's very rare, isn't it?
It's very rare, and in the case of perhaps someone like Sachin Tendulkar, it's a different kind of culture. There's a lot more, shall I say, there's a consciousness in our culture which sort of can make you feel a bit fearful and anxious. The expectations, the criticism. In India, you tend to be built up as as something pretty amazing, and you're held up there forever, as in Tendulkar's case. But it's a rare thing.
What about life after cricket now, Martin? What sort of, how can you earn a living?
Yeah, well, I've got to get a job soon. I'm not going to rush. I've got the whole year really just to get through this period of post chemotherapy and cancer, and I'm looking at a wider field of health and well-being and sharing my story and learning more. I've certainly walked away from television and cricket. Those have been big, portions of my life that I don't need to go back to. So I'm looking forward to the unknown. I'm going to embrace it and, bring it on.
When you woke up this morning, did you feel well? I feel good?
I did. The last couple of weeks since chemo stopped, and I've had the good news, and I've launched the book, and I've sort of know I'm going to be meeting people. It has been a case of waking up and feeling good, and I try and meditate every morning just to set the day and to get those positive thoughts flowing and to affirm what it is that I want out of the day. And I didn't used to do that. I used to be overwhelmed by all sorts of things or anything. I'm sort of taking responsibility now and learning that my health is paramount, and it's what I feed into myself, particularly mentally, is important.
Do you look back now, even the anguish aside, and say, wow, I did that? When you look at that cricket record, it's the envy of all of us cricket fans throughout our lives.
I look back at some aspects of it, and like batting at Lords and on some of the occasions that I was able to rise up. The world record with Andrew Jones was a special one. The victories that I talked about, but overall, it's I'm really putting it into the back burner. It's a bit of an abnormal life, really. It's a bit of a falsehood in some respects. It's also a privilege. It's wonderful to represent your country, and to do it for as long as I did was amazing. But it left some scars, and that's where I've got to sort of just walk away from and start a new beginning, a new life, and learn and live the lessons that I've been given the last 8 months.
Martin Crowe and Joseph Romanos are now coming to Invercargill to speak at the SIT Centre Stage Theatre at 6 p.m. next Thursday, the 27th of June, with doors open at 5:30. Entry is via donation to the Otago Southland Cancer Society, and thanks to the SIT, proceeds from bar sales will also go to that cause. There will be book sales and signings immediately after. Public seating is limited, so please call Q Television on 03 214 6900 to register your interest in attending.